Okay, so imagine this. You wake up, check the news, maybe scroll through your feed, and bam, there's this headline.
Mm-hmm.
Not like the usual stuff, something quieter maybe, but actually huge, something that's fundamentally shifting the global music scene.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's about a name that, as of July 4th, 2025, has just rewritten a pretty major record. We're talking about a change that really makes you rethink, who dominates global music.
Right. Sounds significant.
It really is. The name is Arijit Singh. And get this, he is now officially the most followed musician on Spotify.
Wow. Okay. Most followed.
Exactly. Overtaking, like, the absolute titans. Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, we're talking 151 million followers. Just let that sink in.
151
Yep.
million. That's a number. Especially for an artist, maybe not everyone, particularly in the West, immediately knows as a chart topper in the same vein.
Precisely. And many know him as the king of playback singing in India. For anyone maybe not familiar, playback singing is huge in Bollywood. It's the vocalist you hear when the actors are singing on screen. They're the real voice behind the character song.
A crucial part of the cinematic experience there.
Yeah.
So he's the voice behind the stars, essentially.
You got it. So our mission today in this deep dive is to really unpack this. What does hitting 151 million followers actually mean?
Beyond just the number itself.
Yeah. We'll dig into the numbers, obviously, but also explore who Arijit Singh is, his journey, and why this moment feels like such a big deal for global music trends.
And what it might signal about how platforms like Spotify are changing things for artists everywhere.
Exactly. It's way more than just a statistic. It feels like a real cultural moment. So, okay, let's unpack this incredible story.
Yeah, let's get into it. It really is quite something, especially considering, the usual suspects at the top of these lists.
Totally. The sheer scale hits you when you look at the direct comparisons. Arijit Singh at 151 million followers. Then Taylor Swift currently at, 139.6 million.
Right. Still massive, obviously.
Obviously. And Ed Sheeran, another global mainstay, he's at 121 million. So Arijit's lead is, it's substantial.
It really is. And what makes it even more striking is the platform we're talking about. Spotify.
Right.
It's often seen, or maybe was seen, primarily as the playground for Western pop, hip-hop, rock. English language music has traditionally dominated the kind of global perception of the platform.
Definitely.
So for an artist whose fame is so deeply interwoven with the Indian film industry, Bollywood hits like Tum Hi Ho, Chana Maria, massive songs there to not just be on the list, but to be leading it in followers. That really challenges assumptions, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It suggests a different kind of maybe deeper connection or loyalty is being measured here.
Which makes you want to know more about him, the person behind that voice.
Yeah. Let's talk about Arijit Singh's journey. It's pretty fascinating. He was born back in October '87 in Jiaganj, West Bengal.
Okay.
And his musical start wasn't like instant stardom. He did the rounds, singing competitions. Actually won a reality show called Fame Gurukul way back in 2005.
So reality TV roots early on.
Yeah, but wasn't like, boom, he was everywhere immediately after that. His big Bollywood break took a few more years.
Right. That often happens. Winning is one thing, building a career is another.
Exactly. The song Fir Mohabbat from Murder 2 in 2011 started getting him noticed in the film world. But the real game changer.
Let me guess. Tum Hi Ho.
You know it. From Ashiki 2 in 2013, that song was just colossal. It seemed to be everywhere in India and resonated incredibly deeply. That's what really made him a household name.
Yeah, the track was undeniable. It had that emotional pull.
Totally. And if you listen to his stuff, that's kind of his signature, right? That incredible emotional depth. But also, he's so versatile.
He really is. He can handle these heart-wrenching ballads, but also more upbeat numbers, different genres, different languages even. Hits like A Dil Hai Mushkil or Rabta show that range.
It feels like he connects on this really fundamental emotional level, and maybe that's what helps his music travel,
Yeah.
Even beyond language barriers. It's not just a song, it's a feeling.
Absolutely. And that feeling, that connection brings us to a really important point when we talk about success on platforms like Spotify.
Yeah.
We need to differentiate between two key metrics.
Right. Followers versus monthly listeners.
Exactly. They sound similar, but they tell quite different stories about how people are engaging with an artist's music. It's crucial to kind of unpack the difference.
Okay, let's break it down. So, followers. That's like your core fan base, right? People who've actively hit follow because they want updates. They want to know when new music drops. It signals dedication.
Precisely. It's an intentional act. It signifies loyalty, maybe a deeper investment in the artist's overall career and output. Think of it as joining the fan club, like you said.
Okay. And monthly listeners, that's different.
Yeah, monthly listeners measure something else. It counts the unique individuals who've played at least one of an artist's songs in the last 28 days.
Ah, so it's more about current activity, like who's actually streaming the music now.
Exactly. It's a snapshot of recent engagement. It often reflects things like recent hits, playlist placements, viral trends, general pop culture ubiquity at that moment.
Gotcha. And this is where the numbers for Arijit Singh get really interesting because they show a big contrast.
They really do. Let's look at them.
So Arijit, 151 million followers, which is number one, but his monthly listeners are around 47.4 million.
Okay. Still a huge number of listeners, but
But compared to Taylor Swift, she has, what, 139.6 million followers, fewer than Arijit, but 82.3 million monthly listeners?
way more.
Right. Significant difference there.
And Ed Sheeran, 121 million followers, but almost 100 million monthly listeners, 98.4 million.
Even higher listening engagement relative to followers. And then look at someone like The Weeknd. He has 107.3 million followers, but his monthly listeners are actually higher than his follower count, at a massive 112.2 million.
Wow. So his music is incredibly widespread in current rotation, even beyond his dedicated follower base.
So what's going on here, this difference? Is it weird or normal?
It's actually pretty normal, and it tells us a lot. A huge follower count like Arijit's often points to that incredibly loyal, deeply engaged base we talked about. Maybe people who connect with his entire body of work, particularly within a strong cultural context like Bollywood film music.
Fans for the long haul.
Exactly. They follow the artist, not just the latest hit. Monthly listeners, on the other hand, can be boosted massively by a single track blowing up globally, heavy playlisting, or a big new album drop. It reflects that current, maybe sometimes more fleeting, massive consumption.
So for Arijit, whose songs are often tied to film releases, maybe the listening patterns are different than a pop star dropping singles.
That could definitely be part of it. The release cadence is different. The way songs enter the public consciousness might be tied more to cinematic moments rather than, say, a TikTok trend, though that happens too. It highlights different kinds of popularity.
Okay, that makes sense. So it begs the question, when we see these different numbers, is one metric better or more important? Or are they just showing us different things?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think one is inherently better. They just measure different aspects of success and reach in this streaming age.
Different dimensions of impact?
Precisely. A massive follower count, especially for someone like Arijit, speaks volumes about deep-rooted fandom, cultural significance, and long-term connection. These aren't just passive listeners.
Right, they've actively chosen to connect.
Whereas high monthly listeners might show who's dominating the current global conversation, who has that track you hear everywhere right now. Both are valid measures of influence, just different kinds.
It's interesting to see how this plays out elsewhere, too. Like, Billie Eilish has huge numbers in both around 114 million followers and 95 million monthly listeners. Pretty close.
Yeah, she has both that strong fan base and massive current play.
Then you've got legends like Eminem with over 100 million followers, Drake close behind, Bad Bunny, Justin Bieber, massive followings.
And they often have huge monthly listeners, too, depending on their release cycle.
And looking within India, besides Arijit, you see other huge names. A.R. Rahman has like 65 million followers. Pritam, over 50 million. Neha Kakkar, nearly 50 million.
Significant followings, showing the depth of talent and fandom there.
Even icons from past generations like Lata Mangeshkar and Kishore Kumar have millions of followers on Spotify, 22 million and 16 million respectively, which is amazing.
It really shows how streaming platforms are becoming archives too, preserving legacies while also platforming current stars. It paints a really diverse picture.
So Arijit topping this follower list, it feels like it plugs into something bigger that's been happening, right?
Oh, absolutely. It connects directly to this undeniable trend we've been seeing. Indian music just surging in global popularity.
It's not just contained anymore.
Not at all. Arijit's voice, that emotional quality and versatility we talked about, it's clearly crossing borders. It's finding listeners everywhere. It kind of mirrors how Bollywood itself has gone from being primarily a regional thing to having this global appeal. The music, the dance, the stories.
The music is such a huge part of that appeal.
It's integral. And Arijit is arguably the leading voice of that musical movement right now.
And of course, the internet has opinions. We're seeing lots of debate online about this.
Oh, for sure. What are people saying?
Well, you see the two camps. On one side, people are like, followers don't matter. It's all about the streams, the monthly listeners. That's the real measure.
Focusing purely on consumption volume.
Yeah. But then, especially from India and the diaspora, there's this huge wave of pride. People saying, this is massive for Indian music. It proves our artists are global forces. They see it as a symbolic victory.
And both perspectives have some validity, right? It depends on what metric you value most: immediate widespread play or long-term dedicated following and cultural impact.
And what are industry watchers saying? Publications covering this.
Well, outlets like the Indian Express, Forbes India, they're really focusing on his unique talent, his versatility, that emotional connection. They highlight that as the key driver.
It's not just about the numbers, but the why behind them.
Exactly. And they're also pointing out, hey, this isn't totally out of the blue. Remember back in 2022, there's that data point showing Arijit was streamed more than Beyoncé on Spotify that year.
I do remember that. It caused a bit of a stir.
Right. So while maybe not as headline-grabbing as hitting #1 in followers, it showed his global reach was already immense and growing steadily, even a couple of years ago. This follower milestone is sort of the culmination of that consistent impact.
It really feels like, I don't know, like a David and Goliath story, but for music charts.
That's a great analogy.
And David is singing in Hindi. It's like this major cultural breakthrough, proving that brilliant music, deeply felt music, can find a massive global audience regardless of language if the platform allows it.
I think that's spot on. And you have to see this whole thing in the context of Spotify itself and what streaming has done.
How it's changed the game.
Completely. Spotify launched, 2006? And by 2023, it had over 450 million monthly active users globally. It's totally reshaped music discovery and consumption.
No more relying solely on radio or buying CDs.
Exactly. Before streaming, getting global distribution, especially for non-Western artists, was incredibly difficult. The gatekeepers were powerful.
So for someone like Arijit, Spotify has been crucial.
Transformative, I'd say. It gives artists a direct line to listeners all over the world. Sort of levels the playing field, lets talent rise based on appeal, not just industry connections or geography.
It democratizes music access, basically.
In a big way. And Indian music has really seized that opportunity, especially since Spotify officially launched in India, about 5 years ago. The growth has been explosive.
So connecting the dots, Arijit hitting #1 isn't just about him.
Not at all. It's a powerful symbol of how these digital platforms are genuinely making the music world global. It shows that audiences are hungry for diverse sounds and voices.
And what could this mean looking forward?
Well, you have to think this could open doors even wider for other Indian artists, indie musicians, classical artists, singers from different regional languages. They might see a path to global recognition now, too.
It shifts the balance a bit.
It really could. It suggests a future where musical influence is much more distributed, much less centered on just a few traditional hubs. We could be heading towards a much richer, more diverse global soundtrack.
So wrapping this up then, the big takeaway seems to be that Arijit Singh reaching the top of Spotify's follower chart is, well, it's huge.
It's a landmark moment for sure.
It really highlights how universal music can be. Talent plus that deep connection with fans, powered by a global platform. It's a potent mix. It's a story about cultural resonance on a massive scale.
Proof that music truly is a global language, crossing borders, connecting people.
Absolutely.
And maybe a final thought for you listening. As you go about discovering music, think about this. How could this shift, this rise of artists like Arijit Singh from different parts of the world, actually change what you hear day to day?
Yeah, like on the radio or in movies.
Or even just what Spotify or other services recommend to you personally. Could we see a fundamental change in the global music mainstream in the coming years?
And who are the next Davids out there, singing in different languages, bringing new sounds, just waiting for that platform to connect them with a global audience?
Exactly. What other amazing music are we all about to discover?
What a thought. It definitely makes you want to explore. Maybe start with Arijit Singh if you haven't already, and see where that journey takes you. You might find your next obsession.